about them dogs? Go dogs, go dogs, go dogs, go dogs. Sit. How about them dogs? Go dogs, go dogs, go dogs.
All right. Let's get back into the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is Dog Talk with your host, Holden. Glad to have you guys here tonight as we get ready to recap the game from this past weekend, Georgia, Alabama. Obviously a big one that we've got to recap here. A good bit to get to. We're going to run through it all pretty quickly, coming to you a little bit later than normal, obviously. Weekend like this weekend, kind of need an extra day when you get that late game. And then you roll into a Sunday on it that way. So we're going to get it to you guys, and this is how we're going to get it to you guys. It's just a day later. Not a big deal. A few news and notes we'll get to. We'll get to the AP poll. We talked about coaching hot seats last week, and they continued this week. We'll talk about that. Don't really have much on the injury front. Obviously, we'll be recapping this one and a ton of other games that went on around the country because that's what we got on tap for this episode. So stick around with us. If you guys don't mind, make sure you guys subscribe to the show on YouTube. This is on podcast only. Generally on Sundays is podcast only. So you'll find it wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of the places, iHeartRadio. But go over to the YouTube channel as well. Subscribe there. Hit the like button whenever you watch or listen to a episode over there. We greatly appreciate it. Not going to go through the voicemails tonight. We'll save that for the live call-in show on Thursday as we get ready to prepare for Kentucky. We'll save those voicemails for that. So if you called in after the show, we'll kind of talk about that and do our wrap-up of this recap of the Alabama game when that time comes. So if you're looking for that, come back on Thursday, and we'll have all that. So let's get into it real quick. AP poll did drop. Georgia dropped 7 spots down to the 12th spot. Looks like this: Ohio State, Oregon, Miami, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma in the top 5, followed by Texas A&M, Penn State, Indiana, Texas, and Alabama rounding out your top 10. Then you get Texas Tech, Georgia, LSU, Iowa State, Tennessee through the 15 spot. Vandy up to 16. 17 is Georgia Tech, Florida State 18 after losing to Virginia this past weekend on Friday. Again, we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Missouri at 19, Michigan, at 20, Notre Dame 21, Illinois 22, BYU 23, Virginia up to 24 out of not being ranked, and then Arizona State obviously 25 as well. So that's what the AP top 25 looks like. Not a lot of argument there. Obviously, Oregon beats Penn State. That's granted. I've thought the whole time Penn State's not a top team. Wait till they get tested. They put up a good fight, but nonetheless, Oregon beats them. Oklahoma, should probably have a loss on the season so far to that Auburn game. That didn't happen. Texas A&M also getting in a little bit of a scrap with Auburn too, but they do win it, so they move up. Ole Miss moves up a ton after this weekend after beating the team that we thought was overrated in LSU, and that did happen, but Ole Miss took care of that. That was still a pretty good game there. Ole Miss LSU falls down to 13, just under Georgia after that one. Bama does, you see, jump up those 7 spots to 10, just a couple above us. Obviously, after the loss this weekend. So that's kind of what we'll be talking about here in just a minute. We talked about coaching hot seats that were getting hot last week. Mike Gundy was gone from Oklahoma State last week. And this week it is Arkansas's head coach Sam Pittman, their former offensive line coach for Georgia. He has been fired from the University of Arkansas. So that position has now become vacant, and I believe there are going to be a few more that probably become vacant before the end of the season. This is the first SEC firing in 2 years. There was no SEC head coach change last season, if I remember correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't recall there being any head coaching position changes in the SEC last year. So that's something, this is the first one in a couple of years. So something to kind of see, something to look out for. But that spot is open. Obviously, right now, Petrino? He will be the one to kind of take the reins there, which is just a little bit silly, just if you know any kind of history there at Arkansas. But that is what it is. Let's get into what we're here to get into today. And that's talking about this Alabama and Georgia football game. Coming into it, had a lot of questions, had things that I wanted to see get answered. We'll go through those things. Obviously, the 33-game home win streak was on the line, and that has now been snapped by Alabama. The one team I didn't want it to get snapped to, but it did. Georgia was 1-8 or 1-9 over the last 10 matchups. That's going to move to 1-10 over the last 11. So still that way. Kirby Smart 1-7 to Alabama now in his career at Georgia. And he, when questioned about that, is not worried about that whatsoever because nobody's beating them, in his words, with the exception of last year. At least when a few teams were kind of able to get to that. Georgia hadn't beat Bama in Athens since 2003. That's since changed. That's actually not correct. Oh, excuse me. Hadn't beaten Bama in Athens since 2003. Yeah, I don't know, but that's one of the notes I had. Let's see. They're not the best on the road under DeBoer. And they were very good in this game. I'm going to give them credit where credit is due in a lot of spots, but we've got a lot to talk about when it comes to Georgia. Let's see. Some of the questions I had coming into it, I want to run back through real quick, and then obviously our keys to the game before we dive into the stats of this one. Can they establish a run game? Really, Alabama never did establish a run game in this one. They tried, pushed here and there. The stats will tell you, they averaged 3.1 yards per rush. They only rushed 117 yards on 38 attempts in this game. They tried to run it 5 more times than we did, and we got twice as many yards as they did. So they were not able to establish a run game, which was very good for Georgia's defense. Can Georgia affect the Bama quarterback enough to rattle throws? The answer to that was no. There were times where, yes, we did get in his face. There was one interception that was dropped that would have been huge at the time when it came early in the game. Obviously looking back. But we really never affected him enough. We only had 1 sack on the night, being that of Chris Cole. And other than that, I mean, we had a couple of pressures where we kind of got around him and somewhat in his face, but it wasn't really affecting throws or anything. I mean, he goes 25 for 39 on the night. So things got a little bit wrapped up in the second half, but that first half especially, that was not a problem whatsoever. Let's see. Can Georgia's secondary go stride for stride with their receivers? For the most part, yes. Obviously, early in this game, Ryan Williams drops a wide open touchdown opportunity for Alabama, and that kind of takes away from that. He did get deep on that. There were a couple other plays where we had guys that were beat, and a couple of them they connected on, a few that they didn't. But for the most part, our secondary did stay and stick with them fairly well in this game, so that was good. Can Georgia's receivers beat Bama deep? And the answer to that was yes, and it happened multiple times, a couple of which we hit on, and one of which that was dropped at a very, very pivotal time in this game. Not to say that would have made the difference in it, but it would have given Georgia the lead for the first time all night. So I do believe that our wide receivers did have that capability. One thing I will say, they pinned very, very hard on Zachariah Branch in this game, and rightfully so. I mean, he's a guy who's very twitchy, who's fast, and can break a game wide open. So they were smart defensively, obviously, to kind of stop him in the best way that they could. But for the most part, that was something we were able to do. We could beat them deep, and like I said, connected on some, dropped some, and did not see some of the others either where we were able to get it downfield. Let's see, we need to establish the run game early. Georgia was able to run this entire football game. There was never really a time where Alabama stopped Georgia's run, and the stats will tell you that. 227 yards on 33 carries. I mean, we were averaging 6.9 yards a carry. 2 of the touchdowns we had in this game came on the ground, so Georgia was able to establish a run game. That was not a problem. And will the crowd be loud? The crowd was definitely loud, but the air kind of gets taken out of a stadium when you go down 1 touchdown, but then when you go down 2 touchdowns to a team in which you just seemingly cannot beat. The air was definitely taken out of this game early because of that. Obviously, the Colby Young touchdown on a huge pass downfield to break things kind of open for Georgia's offense, at least. The crowd was right back into it. But unfortunately, it was tough to really be into a game where a lot of times it just you just kind of had that lull in the back of your mind of, here we go again. This is just a team that we, for whatever reason, do not seem to be able to get over. We don't seem to know how to beat this team. And I kind of joked about this with a friend of mine earlier today, and it was, if we play Kentucky, obviously, this weekend coming up, and they were to come out in Alabama jerseys, I don't know what our team would do. And obviously this is a joke. It's not serious. Because I think we do know what we would do, but whatever it is with this program, this team, it's not just this team, because it's happened for years now. It's not just a this year thing. It's not a last year thing. It's an every year thing for whatever reason. When we line up across from Alabama, we don't make the plays necessary to win the game. And I don't know why that is. I honestly don't, because the plays were there, the points were there, the opportunity was there, and we just did not capitalize on it. Didn't capitalize on it at all. Very, very few times did we take advantage of those, and a lot of that was just executing at the right time. Obviously, timing is everything, and it's huge in this game. And at the times that we needed to execute, make the plays, we didn't. That was on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I have a huge question mark right now. Probably my biggest question mark coming into the rest of this season. We've learned things. Kirby has said this also, that he learned a lot about his football team in this, which is great. But my biggest question mark moving forward is going to be, can our defense have a plan to start the game to stop a team from scoring? Because what's happened is we've got on the field and we've obviously had a game plan offensively, and we have a game plan defensively. And whatever that game plan is defensively over the last 2 games has not worked, because it's taken us adjusting very quickly in a football game to stop the bleeding of an offense across from our defense. And I don't know what that is, because for whatever reason, in both of these games that we played against Tennessee 3 weeks ago, and then obviously playing Alabama this past weekend, we got down. Offensively, we answered that bell early against Tennessee, but then they still got up 2 touchdowns on us. Defensively, we were making adjustments, yes, but it took a minute. We didn't have a game plan where it was like, all right, you're not going to be able to stop us. And I don't know if that's just the scheme of these guys that we're playing that come in, and they have such a great scheme set up for these first couple of drives of the game. That's what they look at is, hey, let me punch these guys in the mouth. And if we can do that, if we can get up a couple of scores, that might be enough. For Tennessee, it wasn't, because offensively we were able to come back. Defensively, we didn't really stop them a lot in that game a couple of weeks ago against Tennessee. And in this one, we did stop them, but offensively, we just weren't getting the answers. We weren't executing in the times that we needed to. And when the opportunities were there, we didn't take advantage of those things. And that's what cost you the football game in this. Obviously, we've got a lot of questions about play calling. And not all of this is on Bobo. Bobo, he called a fairly good game in this. There were only a couple times where we had 3 and outs where it was like, man, what was the deal there? That was kind of stagnant, not a lot really happening there. Really scratch your head late when we weren't able to move the football very effectively at all. And then we obviously give them the ball back, and we never see it back. Then obviously everybody's going to have the conversation about the 4th and 1 call. We're hurrying up. We're trying to get something going. We're trying to, catch them off guard and get by them. And at the time I said this, and I still agree with it, that I don't hate the call, and everybody and their mama is going to hate the call. And I also understand that side of it. So hear me when I say that. I get why Kirby did it, but I also get why everybody would be mad at it, because we're catching them leaning. We've got them on their heels at this point. Again, you're rushing for almost 7 yards a carry. Unfortunately, you have your 3rd down back in Cash Jones, and this is not me trying to throw shade on Cash Jones, but Cash Jones was not the guy this weekend. He rushed it twice for -7 yards in this football game. So he was not the guy that you needed to be able to lean forward. Chauncey Bowens, he was having a huge weekend. He was having a great night. Rushes for over 100 yards in this football game, and unfortunately, he was not the one on the field at the time. Now, again, I also want to go back to the point that I made earlier of execution. You have to execute, and when the opportunities are there, you execute, you are successful. And that didn't happen because our offensive line missed 1 block, and you are 1 block away from more than likely scoring a touchdown there and taking the lead with just, 4 minutes left in the game, I believe it was around that time. And that doesn't happen. Unfortunate for your right side line, who have been doing a great job. Obviously, we're getting some answers there on the right side with Juwan Gaston and Bo Hughley there. So that's a great thing. That's a helpful thing with Ernest Green being out. But unfortunately, that was the one play where that side of the line did not hold up, and it wasn't enough for Cash to be able to get out deep. And like I said, more than likely, when you watch the wide of that shot or that play, if that block happens, I'm pretty sure that Cash is going to score. If he doesn't, it's at least a 1st down. But let's back up one play. We get, in my opinion, looking at it, we never gave the opportunity for the booth to be able to call down. To me, it looked like Gunner easily had the 1st down yardage. They didn't give it to him. We go hurry up. And I know that Kirby has said, hey, when this has happened, it even happened in this game, they buzz down really quickly if they see the potential of that. And I'm not doubting that. I'm not doubting that they could buzz down quickly, but I'm also saying that there's the potential if we just get on the line and try a hard snap, one, to see if they would jump because we were going so quickly. There's a strong possibility, as loud as things were in that stadium, that maybe they jump and you get a free first down just out of that, just out of a team not being 100% disciplined, which for the most part, both of these teams were in this game until late, on Georgia's part at least. But that's the only thing where I go, man, I kind of wish we would have given it a hard count, see if they jump, but give them a chance to maybe look at that and say, hey, they got the first down, and then push to try to continue to get in the end zone and end the game. Obviously, the way that they were moving the football that last drive in the game that we really had, at least, that was Georgia's essential death nail in the coffin, where we were going to drive down the field, and our call in this one was to get in the end zone. Obviously, if you're on the 35-yard line and it's 4th and 2, 4th and 1, we're probably kicking that. We're trying to kick it, get the tie game, and move forward. But you're deep enough in. You've got them on their heels. You have all the momentum in the world, and you're one block away from this being a completely different conversation. You're one block away from, instead of us saying, Kirby, kick the ball, get the tie, live to fight for another down, and we're one play away, one block away from that not being the case, from us scoring, having the lead in this game. Not sure what would have happened after that, because I don't want to make those if, ands, or buts, because there's a strong possibility they crank their offense up and drive right down the field. I don't know that. I can't say effectively that that's what was going to happen, but I can say effectively our defense was doing everything correctly in the second half of this football game because we shut them out from scoring at all. When they early scored in this football game and we're up 14-0, as we jumped into the second quarter, and then at the half, they're up 24-21. They never scored again in the second half. Never scored again in the second half. So your defense was doing a great job. Obviously, we can lean on our defense at that time. If we don't get it, they're deep. There's potential our defense stops them. We get the ball back. We don't have a lot of time left. We drive down, we score, or we tied. But you cannot, here's my only gripe on that. You can't put it in the other team's hand to stop you from winning. If the ball is in your hand, you have the chance to either tie it or to take the lead. We were shooting to take the lead. But when you put that kind of consideration in, when you say, okay, in this scenario, we're going for it because we want to be able to score and get in the end zone. Again, you're one block away from that. I'll stop saying it. But if that doesn't happen, all of a sudden you no longer are in control. You're not. You may have all three of your timeouts, which we did at the time, but you're not the one in control. All it takes is the other team across from you making a few plays, running the clock down, which they did, and the game is over. It's no longer in your hands. So at that time, you have to make the answer of, all right, if we're going to do this, we have to be understanding that it's no longer in our control. So control what you can control, which at that time is either tie the game, make the block, and score. And unfortunately, neither one of those things are the things that happen. So again, I get both sides of it. I get the side that Kirby talks about. You're one block away. You probably score on that play. I hate the fact that there's the potential of waiting 5-10 seconds and they call down and it's a first down anyways, because again, the line to gain looked like it had been gained. I was surprised they didn't call it a first down, but then again, sometimes you just don't get those calls. As far as calls go, for the most part, they were for the most part in this game, the referees did a good job as far as holding the flag in their pocket and just letting the game play out. There were multiple holding penalties that were not called in this football game. A couple that I did see against Georgia, but there were multiple against Alabama that never got called. There were a couple of times where I'm glad that they kept their flag in the pocket when we were defending a couple of passes that looked like it was potential pass interference. So they were really both sides of the ball. There was an opportunity for flags to be thrown that weren't. And then vice versa. There were flags that were thrown on both sides. Penalty-wise, I think both teams got penalized over 5 times. Let's see, 4 times for Alabama, that was 16 yards, 6 times for Georgia, which was 68. That was the biggest discrepancy, and this was 2 differences in penalties, but 50 yards, 52 yards was the difference in those penalties, which is kind of nuts to get 4 penalties only for 16 yards compared to 6 for 68. But I digress. That's just, kind of one of those things. That's the unfortunate thing. Then, you look at the timeouts late in the game. It's not you're not the one in control, so you have to make the plays and make the stops that are necessary. We make some silly mistakes, which honestly, the mistake that Ellis Robinson made there at the end of the game, it didn't really matter. Was it dumb? Yes, absolutely. And should he have done it? No, absolutely not. But they had gained the first down. All that did was move them 15 yards forward. they were not looking at that time to try to gain a lot of yardage. If they wanted to gain a lot of yardage and score on you, they could have done that, because even the last play of the game, where they run the clock out, get the first down there on third down, if you look at the tight of that one too, their tight end's deep and he's wide open. So they had two opportunities there. There was no stopping them from getting the first down to end the game. But if they wanted to push the ball downfield, that would have been effective. But at that point, it was all about the clock and just getting the first down. So those 15 yards did not matter. Still just a stupid penalty, stupid thing to do. But that was that. As far as that goes, obviously we have a huge drop in the third quarter there by a true freshman. It happens. Unfortunately, it's a huge game. He's a true freshman. It's loud. This game matters a lot. He knows, hey, if I catch this ball, I'm in the end zone and we're winning at this point, which is huge. But, on the flip side of that, they also had a wide open touchdown early in the game to Ryan Williams, who last year would have caught anything you possibly threw at him. And for whatever reason, this year, he's not catching a cold that you throw at him. Don't know why that is. Obviously, we had those troubles last year. So there's a couple of touchdowns for both teams that don't go your way. We do have the one fumble in this one, unfortunately, there for Nate Frazier. Very unfortunate there, because every week we seem like that's a recurring thing. It's kind of one of those, the ball needs to be put in his chest and told to walk around campus for the rest of the week. And if somebody shows up with the ball other than him, he's going to wish that that didn't happen, just because he's got to learn a lesson, from it. And it's, to me, I don't know the disciplinary side of it is all that effective, as much as it's just like mentally, we've got to get over that and protect the football better. Obviously, you give them the ball deep in their territory. That's very, very hard to stop a team who, especially in this first half, was incredibly, incredibly efficient. And I have to give a lot of credit out to, as much as I don't want to, Ty Simpson in this game, because he played lights out in this first half of the game. And even second half, continuing to get the ball moving, very, very effective in this game. And Georgia, again, I kind of harp back to that same thing of defensively. I don't know that our preparation is enough coming into these football games, just because on paper and obviously in film, watching these games, the last two football games we've played, defensively, we're not prepared coming into these games, because these teams that are playing us are scheming us up left and right, and their first, second, and third drives of the game are effective, and they score on them. And by the way, in this game in general, they scored twice, and they ate so much clock in doing that. They were both 14-play drives, if I recall, starting this game. I'll get into the numbers here in a minute. But for whatever reason, offensively, it seems like maybe we have some things figured out. Now, this game we didn't. We 3 and out to start the football game, which is definitely not fun. Not the way that you want to start it. But defensively, it's been a recurring thing right now where we're kind of getting gashed in these bigger football games, and that's very important for the defense to kind of get fixed, whatever that issue is, because we're not stopping teams early. I can remember the years of old, which, not to harp on it, but that's what you get to look at right now. Is it's been years now, not just a year ago, not just 2 years ago. It's been years ago since you last won that national championship, and those teams are teams that they didn't want you getting in their end zone. They didn't allow you in the end zone, especially in the regular season early, and that's not the case right now. Right now we have a ton of talent. We have great guys that are in the field, obviously on the field, on defense, on that backside. But for whatever reason, we just don't have something that is stopping these teams from scoring and scoring early against these teams. Here's the problem. You can't always come back from a game. This was a point in this one. Again, we had the opportunities, didn't execute on them, but you can't every single week expect for your offense to have to pick you up every single week when you get down multiple scores. That can't happen. It can't continue to happen. We have to get into these football games, start them, and stop the other team while we effectively start strong on offense on the other side of the ball. So that's a big, big question I'm going to have moving forward, is how can we defensively stop a team early instead of having to make the adjustments every single time, which are effective. When we make the adjustments, they're very effective, and we've stopped teams. Now, Tennessee, they kept it rolling when we played them. But in this one, you stopped the team. Whatever it was that caused that stop, I don't know. But I wish that would have happened at the beginning of the game. Not that I want them to score later either, but I want us to come into a football game with such a plan of you're not scoring on us that it comes to fruition. So that was kind of an unfortunate thing, obviously, coming into this football game, because defensively in the second half, we looked great. We just didn't execute as much as we needed to offensively in this football game. And the opportunities were there, so that's part of it. The keys to the game were this: protect the football. We did, for the most part, good, with exception, obviously, to the fumble early. Limit the explosives. We did that. They had a couple. Again, we had a couple in this one that we made. A couple that each of us should have made, but for the most part, we did limit the explosives. They were just really making great plays early in this football game. Affect the quarterback. I'm going to say we did not really do that. We just didn't, for the most part. Again, one sack. You're in his face a couple of times, but he's still making plays left and right. And then something that's generally one of those calls every single week is winning the third down battle. And if that would have been one of the keys this week, we failed it drastically because what were they? I don't know, 8 for 8 to start the football game. I mean, we could not buy a third down stop defensively to start this football game whatsoever. And that was brutal. That was tough to watch. Something that I've never seen. I don't think has ever happened under a Kirby Smart Georgia defense. So that was again not very fun. Not very fun in that. They started the game, obviously. Again, we go 3 and out. We literally 3 plays, 2 yards the entire time. 49 seconds is what was taken off the clock when we first got into this game. They proceed to go 14 plays, 74 yards, 6.5 minutes for a touchdown. We get the ball back. Again, 3 and out. 4 plays, 24 yards, basically a minute and a half. They get it back, and they go 14 more plays, 83 more yards. Almost 7 minutes right there in the first quarter of this game. They had the ball 12 minutes, 28 seconds. We had it a whopping 2 minutes and 32 seconds for our total 2 drives in this football game. That's all we had in the first quarter. And that's all they had too, but that's because they used half of the first quarter, literally, actually, well more than half of the first quarter of this game and shoved it right down our throats. All of it coming through the air and consistently getting first downs on third down. That was very, very difficult to watch. Then obviously later in the game, we do get a touchdown off of the big Colby Young touchdown play, but then we fumble it there in the second quarter as well, giving them the ball on, let's see, I guess it was our 11-yard line. I mean, you totally can't do that, which they only got a field goal out of, so that was at least good, but it didn't matter. Again, you don't do that, and things can change from that because then they turn around and score after it. Then obviously we score before the half, making it a 24-14 score, or excuse me, 24-14 there at the half. But then we only score one more time in the second half. That's all we score. And that was there in the third quarter. That was probably one of our better drives. Started on the 26, drove 6 plays, 74 yards, 3.5, or just over 3 minutes in that one. One of our best drives was there in the second quarter as well. We drove for that touchdown. Trying to remember which one that was. That was Chauncey Bowens that pulled that one in. 11 plays, 75 yards, 6 minutes, 22 seconds. Second quarter, you owned. You did very good in the second quarter, obviously, getting that touchdown. They had a touchdown and a field goal in this one, too. But I think we had both touchdowns in the second quarter, actually. Yeah, both of the touchdowns coming there in the second quarter. But you held the ball longer in that one, a couple of minutes longer than them, which was effective, but it didn't matter. They ended up with the ball 35 minutes, 36 seconds in this game. You had it 24 minutes, 24 seconds. So They took charge on that. Again, back to the third down conversions. They were 13 of 19. 13 of 19 on third downs. We were 2 of 8. A team in Georgia that I harp on every single week of we have to convert them and we have to get off the field on third downs. And unfortunately, that was not happening early in this game. Later in the game, it got a little bit better. They still converted, obviously, in the later part of the game too. But that 13th coming at the end of the game. But that was tough. That was very, very difficult watching the defense just constantly getting beat early in this football game. Really, really hard to watch. And then obviously, again, being against this team that you just seemingly cannot seem to beat. Looking at some of the stats in this one, they had 25 first downs to our 17. 10 of ours came on the ground, 6 of theirs. 16 of theirs came through the air, whereas 5 of ours came that way. They got 3 first down penalties. We had 2 first down penalties in this game. Net yards rushing, we had 227 yards. Again, on 33 carries, we were averaging 6.9 yards per rush. 2 of our touchdowns came in that way. We only lost 18 yards in this game. Again, a couple of them tackles for loss, and then obviously we got sacked one time in this football game. So that adjusted 227 yards. They only had 117 yards. We talked about this earlier on 38 attempts, 3.1. So again, it goes back to that question of why in the world do you run it there? And I think it was really just the personnel, unfortunately. Again, not trying to bash on Cash Jones there, but if Chauncey Bowens is in there, even if he gets tripped up a little bit, he falls forward a yard instead of sideways for a loss of a yard and losing that opportunity to potentially score there. Through the air, they dominated us on that, 280 yards, 25 for 39, 7.2 is what they were averaging. In that one, 2 touchdowns through the air. We had 130. Gunner was 13 for 20. 6.5 is what he was averaging. Did have the 1 touchdown to Colby Young in this one. Offensively, like the yardage on this one was not bad. Almost 400 yards for Alabama at 397 to our 357. So only 40 yards difference in this football game. They ran a lot more plays than us, 77 to 53. But again, when you're constantly getting those third down conversions early, that changed things. And what really could have changed things would have been a big turnover for our defense. Obviously, we had we had an interception that was dropped right in the hands. I want to say that it was KJ Bolden had an interception in his hands. Unfortunately, drops that. That would have been huge because that would have stopped either the first or second drive. I want to say it was the first drive that they had, but I could be wrong. It might have been that second drive that they had, which would have stop that and would have hopefully stopped the bleeding of all these third down conversions that they were on and the momentum that they had going from that point. But we didn't do that. We're not doing very good as far as getting turnovers this year. Something you don't really like to see. Obviously, we're doing good in the passing department as far as not giving those turnovers, but we're fumbling it. That seems to be a weekly occurrence. But defensively, we're not getting a lot of turnovers right now, so that's something we've got to see change. Also in this game. Let's see the time of possession. We talked about that a little bit. Third down conversions, which was just tough. The red zone scores. They go 4 for 4 in the red zone, 3 of which were touchdowns. 1 field goal. Then they did miss the 1 field goal, but that was out of the red zone when that happened. We were 2 for 3. 2 for 3 of those. 2 of the 3 were touchdowns. Did not kick any field goals when we were in there. Obviously, that one being what everybody wishes we'd have kicked it at least to tie it and live another day. But that didn't happen. Each of us had a sack on the night, so those are what those numbers look like. Let's look offensively real quickly at what our numbers lined up. Again, Gunnar Stockton, 13 for 21, 30 is his total. 1 touchdown, did get sacked once. Chauncey Bowens, leading the charge, 12 rushes, 120 yards in this game, netted 119. Had the 1 touchdown. I mean, he's averaging 10 yards a carry, basically right there. 10 yards a carry. And that was unfortunate. His long was 43. Dylan Bell also with 43 yards. His long was that 43-yard rush on the one time he gets the end around, which was huge. Nate Frazier, 4 for 30. Let's see. Gunner did run it a couple times in this one. He averages on this one 22 yards. Josh McCray touched it 6 times for 15 yards. He did also get a touchdown. That dude was fighting. Zachariah Branch did rush it a couple times for 4 yards is what he ended up netting. In this one, Dwight Phillips 1 for 1 yard in this game. And then obviously the Cash Jones, 2 touches, -7 yards is what he had in this game, unfortunately, there. But again, we did all we wanted to do. 245 was on the ground, but it nets out to 227 after the few losses of yardage in there, and then the sack also in there. So ran very effectively in this game. We averaged again 6.9 yards on the ground. We were doing anything we wanted to on the ground. We looked very good. Very, very good on the ground, which was great. We can run the football and we can stop you from running, which is good. But we have to take advantage of things defensively, get off the field on third downs defensively, and then execute offensively when the time comes. Colby Young leads the charge through the air, 59 yards, did have the 138-yard touchdown catch there, which was the lone touchdown through the air. Zachariah Branch, 35 yards on 3 touches. Chauncey Bowens, 22 yards on 4. London Humphreys, 1 touch for 9 yards. Scobie White had 5 yards on 1 touch. Oscar Delp was targeted, I believe, 1 time. Doesn't really look like anything there. Then Taylor, obviously, with the massive drop there late in the third quarter, which would have been big. But, hey, he's young. He'll learn from it. It's not a big deal. 130 yards through the air, 1 touchdown in it. Brett Thorson did his job. Three kicks inside the 20. Looked good there. Punting. And then Peyton, he obviously did well in this game as well. Let's look defensively at our leaders in this one. CJ Allen leading the charge with 8 total tackles in this one. Kyron Jones and KJ Bolden right behind him with 7 and 6. Also, Raylan Wilson and Dalen Everett had 6 in this one as well. Chris Cole, 5 tackles, one of those being a tackle for loss, which was that sack in this game. Jordan Hall also had a tackle for loss. Justin Williams, a tackle for loss, and Quintavious Johnson also on that list for tackles for loss in this one. So it was tough. Tough football game every single time we play this team. I don't know what it is, but there's always that anticipation of, man, I just want to beat this team. That's all there is to it. And afterwards, I really was not mad. There's nothing to be mad at this point. Unfortunately, you just kind of become numb to it, and you're more frustrated than anything because it really seemed like we had opportunities to take advantage of and beat this team. And it's one of those that I almost tweeted this beforehand and I didn't do it, which was just, man, I want everybody in the country to fear having to play Georgia, whether it's coming to them or they're coming to you. I want teams to fear them. And there's one team in this country that has no fear of you whatsoever, and that is Alabama. Whether you go to them or they come to you, they don't fear you at all because for whatever reason, we don't play up to the standard when we play them. And I'm tired of that. I'm sick of it personally. That's the only thing I could say at the end of that game was just sick. When you lose to that team so many times, that's all it does. Just kind of makes you sick. And I know that we'll bounce back from this. Our future is still in our hands, in front of us. Our destiny is still in our control at this point. You have to continue winning football games. Obviously, you lose to the teams you shouldn't, and your destiny would no longer be in your hands. But as 1 loss, 3-1 in the 12-team college football playoff structure that it is now, you're fine. 1 loss does not define your season moving forward because a lot of these teams that we're about to play moving up are ranked. Your schedule is lining up to be very, very difficult, but also important that it is because when you win those difficult games in this schedule, you're going to be just fine. One thing I've definitely said looking at this is I'm afraid this is going to be a year that the SEC really tears itself apart. I knew coming into this season, Georgia's probably going to lose a football game because of the schedule that they have lined up. This was the one I hoped we didn't. I was kind of expecting it to be more of that Texas game later. Texas didn't necessarily look like the team we thought they would be this year so far. And Alabama kind of looked like the team that, we could take advantage of this early, but they've really stepped up and turned things around again. Unfortunately, a lot of credit out to Ty Simpson in this one because he had quite a football game. The prediction on it was 31-30. Obviously, that doesn't happen. So that kind of rounds out recapping this football game. Like I said, we'll get to the voicemails on the Thursday call-in show. Real quick, we're going to look at some of the games around the country from the Week 5 recap, and then we'll kind of wrap things up here really quickly. Again, if you guys don't mind, make sure you guys follow us over on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now, at DawgTalk20, Instagram, Facebook, all of the things. We'd greatly appreciate that. And if you're listening on podcast platform, wherever you are, go and check out the YouTube channel as well. We appreciate you guys listening. Give us that 5-star. I'd greatly appreciate that. Let's look back at some of the games from the weekend. Friday is where it started. While watching high school football, I kept looking and going, man, Florida State's having a struggle up there at Virginia. And they lose. They lose in big fashion, 46-38. Kept fighting back, but it wasn't enough to take down Virginia. So they fall. Number 8 team in the country falls there, and quite a field storm. That was something else. TCU also falls 27-24 against Arizona State there on Friday night. So a couple of big games there Friday night. Then we get into the Saturday slate. Ohio looked a little squirmish there. First half of this one, 7-3 going to the half, but Ohio State pulls away 24-6 against Washington. Oregon over Penn State. It took a couple of overtimes. Penn State coming back in this game. But they did that there in the fourth quarter. Oregon does end up winning it in double overtime, 30-24. Ole Miss and LSU. Ole Miss at home really never seemed like they were out of control in this game. First quarter, obviously LSU had the lead on them 7-3, but then Ole Miss scores a couple of touchdowns there in the before the half and really kind of pulled away from this one before LSU comes back there in the fourth quarter. Makes it a game there in the fourth quarter. 24-19 is the final there. Ole Miss over it. Texas A&M holds on to beat Auburn 16-10. Really low scoring game there. Another tight one there. I'm going to tell you this. From what I've seen so far, the Auburn schedule or timing has kind of been released for that Georgia at Auburn game, and it's going to be a night game regardless, whether it's 7:30, or 7:45. It's going to be a night game at Auburn. It's going to be a really tough game. I'll say that right now. Kind of ahead of that time. They're 3-2. but they got 2 losses on this schedule, one of which is this, to the number 9 team in the country by 6 at their house. And the other one is to an Oklahoma team that they probably should have beat, who's now in the top 10 as well. So definitely not going to sleep on that game. Indiana beats Iowa 20-15. Iowa State over Arizona 39-14. Tennessee, Mississippi State also going to overtime right there, 41-34. Tennessee does squeak by that one. Mississippi State, quietly a defense that is going to do everything it can to beat you, but offensively kind of came alive in this one, 41-34. Again, losing this one in overtime, but wow, what a game. What a game right there. Don't sleep on Mississippi State moving forward. Georgia Tech barely squeaks by Wake Forest, also in overtime, 30-29. I don't know what the deal is with all these overtime games this year, but is what it is. Vandy hanging another 50 burger on a team, 55-35 over Utah State. Illinois does beat USC 34-32. Like I said, every single year we put USC in the top 25, and then they lose. And the Illinois team who just got spanked by Indiana the week before. Notre Dame, speaking of a spanking, over Arkansas 56-13, leading to what would be Sam Pittman's demise. BYU does beat Colorado 24-21. So that's your big games from this past weekend. The picks on the weekend, I look at them real quick. I did do good. 4-1 in this one. I know when we were kind of talking about the picks last week that I said I kind of was just verbally going through my picks, and I usually write them down, but I usually only do 4, and then I might pick, the spread on some or the over-under. And I did do that, but I realized listening back I actually said 5 because I was talking about that Florida State game. Luckily, I left it off of my picks when I actually typed them in. I took Georgia over Bama, did not win that one. Obviously, I took Ole Miss over LSU, got that one. Oregon over Penn State, got that one. And Tennessee over Mississippi State, got that one. All of which were close in this one, so I do end up going 3-1 on the week here. So that moves me to 19-10 on the season. 19-10, not too bad. So that was the picks for the week. That's going to kind of wrap us up here. Again, we'll be back on Thursday for the live call-in show as we get ready to prepare for the Kentucky game coming up this weekend. Going to be at 12 o'clock. It's a game just kind of early preview in here that Georgia should be able to take care of. I think we're like a 20.5 point, 21 point favorite leading into this one where the line kind of opens. But I just, this is always a game that's never really out of hand like you kind of want it to be. Generally, when we're at home, we play a little bit better. But this is a 12 o'clock game coming off of the game that you played this past weekend at a night game, a ruckus environment, a tough team that you played. Obviously, it beats you up a lot on both sides of the ball. But you're coming into this one at 12 o'clock. It's a chance for Georgia to walk into this game, and I hope that doesn't happen. I hope they come prepared and ready to rock there at that 12 o'clock slate on Saturday. But that's what we're going to be kind of gearing up for on that Thursday live call-in show when the time comes, and we'll check in with you guys when it does come here. Go Dogs.
How